The Roman Empire rose, conquered the known world, and then crumbled into dust. The mighty Holy Roman Empire sprawled across Europe for 1,000 years before it too faded into the history books. Great kingdoms, powerful city-states, and ambitious dynasties have all had their moment in the sun only to disappear. And yet, perched on a rugged mountain in the heart of Italy, one tiny republic has watched them all come and go. San Marino. It is a story so improbable, so utterly remarkable that it feels like a fairy tale, but it is very, very real. This is the tale of how a nation smaller than most cities refused to die for over 17 centuries. Our story begins in an age of giants, a time when power was measured in legions and territory. While emperors in Rome were building vast monuments to their own glory, a humble stonemason was laying the foundations of something far more enduring. San Marino's survival is not a story of grand armies or epic conquests. You won't find tales of conquering emperors in its history. Instead, you find something much more powerful. You find the story of an idea. It is the idea that liberty is more precious than land, and that freedom can be defended not just with swords, but with wisdom, diplomacy, and an unbreakable sense of who you are. To understand this incredible feat of survival, we have to look beyond the usual markers of national strength. San Marino's power was never about its size, it was about its spirit. It is a nation that has mastered the art of being small in a world obsessed with being big. It chose its friends carefully. It avoided quarrels that were not its own. It built its identity not on what it owned, but on what it believed. And through centuries of turmoil, from the fall of Rome to the wars of the modern age, those beliefs have been its shield and its fortress, stronger than any stone wall. So, how did they do it? How did this tiny enclave, surrounded on all sides by larger, more aggressive powers, manage to hold on? It's a question that has fascinated historians, statesmen, and travelers for generations. The answer is a masterclass in survival. It involves a saint seeking refuge, a strategic mountain, a commitment to neutrality, and a healthy dose of good fortune. It is a lesson that true strength comes not from might, but from unity, tradition, and a clear vision of what it means to be free. Let's journey back in time and uncover the secrets of the world's oldest and most resilient republic. Our journey begins in the year 301 AD. The Roman Empire under the rule of Emperor Diocletian was a dangerous place for Christians. A stonemason from the island of Rab in modern-day Croatia decided to flee the persecution. His name was Marinus. He was not a king, a general, or a nobleman. He was a simple man of faith seeking a safe place to practice his beliefs. He and a small group of followers made their way across the Adriatic Sea to Italy. They traveled inland until they found the perfect refuge, a formidable isolated peak called Mount Titano. This mountain would become their fortress, their home, and the cradle of their new community. High above the surrounding plains, Marinus and his followers could live in peace. The rugged terrain offered natural protection from the world below. Here they built a small chapel and lived a life of simple piety and hard work. According to legend, Marinus's reputation for holiness grew. A noblewoman named Felicissima, who owned the land, was so impressed by his faith that she gifted Mount Titano to him and his community. His final words to his followers, as recorded in tradition, were a powerful instruction. Relinquo vos liberos ab utroque homine. I leave you free from both men. He meant the emperor and the pope. He was leaving them a legacy of independence. This founding myth is the very bedrock of San Marinese identity. It fuses their nationhood with the Christian values of humility, community, and freedom. Their independence was not won through a bloody war of rebellion, it was a gift, sanctified by a saint. This gave their sovereignty a moral and spiritual authority that was difficult for outsiders to challenge. For centuries, when popes or princes considered absorbing the tiny state, they were reminded that San Marino was the sacred legacy of Saint Marinus. To attack it would be to attack a community founded on faith and protected by a holy man. The early years were defined by this Christian foundation and the security of their mountain home. The community was small, isolated, and self-sufficient. They were not a threat to anyone, and their rugged location made them a difficult prize to win. While the Western Roman Empire collapsed around them into chaos, the community on Mount Titano endured. They were guided by the principles their founder had laid down: live simply, work together, and above all, remain free. This powerful combination of geography and ideology gave San Marino a head start in the long race for survival, a race it is still running today. As Europe plunged into the turbulent Middle Ages, San Marino had to learn to navigate a world of feuding lords, ambitious popes, and warring city-states. Survival depended on being clever, not strong. The San Marinese perfected the art of diplomacy and the principle of neutrality. They understood that their greatest weapon was their insignificance. By never taking sides in the endless conflicts that raged across the Italian peninsula, they made themselves useful to all and a threat to none. Their mountain became a place of refuge, not a military target. This policy was not born of weakness, but of profound strategic wisdom. A crucial moment in their political development came in the year 1243. The people of San Marino decided they would not be ruled by a single lord or a hereditary dynasty. Instead, they created a unique system of government. They would elect two leaders, known as the captain's regent, to govern together. These leaders would hold office for only 6 months, ensuring that no single individual could accumulate too much power. This system, which continues to this day, is a remarkable testament to their early commitment to republican ideals. It prevented the rise of a tyrant from within, and presented a united, stable front to the world outside. Their relationship with the papacy was a delicate dance. While founded on Christian principles, San Marino fiercely guarded its independence from the temporal power of the popes, whose territory often surrounded them. There were several attempts by the papal states to annex the tiny republic. Each time, San Marino used a combination of skilled diplomacy, legal arguments based on its ancient rights, and appeals to powerful allies to fend off the threat. They successfully argued that their existence did not challenge the church, but rather embodied its purest, earliest values. This allowed them to maintain a fragile but crucial independence right on the Pope's doorstep. Through the Renaissance, as powerful families like the Medici and the Borgia carved up Italy, San Marino remained an island of stability. While Florence, Venice, and Milan built empires through trade and war, San Marino focused on strengthening its laws and its identity. It codified its statutes, creating a robust legal framework that protected the rights of its citizens. This internal strength was its best defense. By building a just and well-governed society, they created a community so unified and proud that it was simply too difficult to digest. Larger powers looked at the small, rugged state and decided it was more trouble than it was worth. The late 18th century brought a whirlwind of change to Europe in the form of Napoleon Bonaparte. The French general swept across the continent, toppling ancient monarchies and redrawing the map of Italy. Old republics like Venice and Genoa fell before his armies. It really seemed inevitable that tiny San Marino would also be swallowed up. But then, something extraordinary happened. Napoleon, the great conqueror, was actually an admirer of the small republic. He saw in San Marino a surviving example of the republican virtues that his own revolution claimed to champion. He saw it not as a prize to be taken, but as a model to be respected. In 1797, as his army passed nearby, Napoleon sent a delegate, Gaspard Monge, to San Marino. He came not with threats, but with a message of friendship and admiration. Napoleon offered to guarantee San Marino's independence, and even more astonishingly, he offered to give them more territory. He suggested extending their borders to the sea, giving them a valuable port and more farmland. It was a tempting offer, a chance for the small republic to finally become bigger and wealthier. For any other state, it would have been an irresistible gift. But San Marino was not any other state. The captain's regent considered the offer carefully. Their response has become a legendary moment in the history of diplomacy. They thanked Napoleon profusely for his generous friendship. They accepted his guarantee of their independence with gratitude, but with the utmost politeness, they refused the offer of more territory. One of the regents, Antonio Onofri, argued that their survival had always depended on their smallness. To accept new lands, he reasoned, would only invite future conflicts and the jealousy of their neighbors. They were content with their poverty and their liberty, and they feared that expanding their borders would ultimately lead to the loss of both. This decision was a moment of profound self-awareness. It demonstrated that the leaders of San Marino understood the true secret of their endurance. Their strength was not in size, but in their unique identity and their commitment to neutrality. Napoleon was so impressed by their wisdom that his respect for the Republic only grew. He ordered his armies to respect their borders and even sent them a gift of wheat to help with a food shortage. This encounter with the most powerful man in Europe gave San Marino something invaluable: international recognition. The ancient republic had been noticed, and its right to exist was now acknowledged on the world stage. The 19th century was the age of nationalism in Italy. The dream of a single, unified Italian state, the Risorgimento, began to take hold. The peninsula was a patchwork of kingdoms and duchies, and the movement to unite them was led by passionate revolutionaries. San Marino found itself in a delicate position. It supported the ideal of a free and united Italy, but it also cherished its own, much older independence. Once again, the Republic had to navigate a political storm, balancing its sympathies with its instinct for self-preservation. It chose to do so by becoming a safe haven for those fighting for Italian liberty. One of the most famous figures of the Risorgimento was Giuseppe Garibaldi, a charismatic general and revolutionary hero. In 1849, after the fall of the revolutionary Roman Republic, Garibaldi and his few thousand surviving soldiers were trapped, hunted by Austrian and Papal armies. Desperate and surrounded, he saw one last hope: the neutral territory of the Republic of San Marino. He led his exhausted men up the steep slopes of Mount Titano, seeking refuge. The Samarinese, at great risk to themselves, welcomed him. They granted him and his men asylum, protecting them from their enemies. This act of hospitality was a defining moment. By sheltering Garibaldi, San Marino openly declared its support for the cause of Italian unification, but it did so on its own terms. It did not join the fighting, but instead offered humanitarian aid and refuge. Garibaldi, in return for their protection, promised that San Marino's independence would always be respected. He formally disbanded his army on their soil to honor their neutrality. When the Kingdom of Italy was finally proclaimed in 1861, this promise was remembered. The new Italian state, born from the very movement San Marino had sheltered, signed a treaty of friendship and cooperation, formally recognizing its ancient neighbor's sovereignty. San Marino had successfully turned a potential threat into a powerful friendship. It had supported the unification of its giant neighbor, while cleverly ensuring its own continued existence. It proved that a nation could be both a good neighbor and a fiercely independent state. It had woven itself into the story of modern Italy not as a lost province, but as a special friend, a protected elder. The Republic had once again used its core values, neutrality, hospitality, and diplomacy, to navigate the changing tides of history and emerge with its freedom intact, ready to face the challenges of a new century. The 20th century brought new and terrible challenges to Europe. 2 world wars that shattered empires and redrew the continent's map once again. For a tiny neutral state like San Marino, surrounded by a country deeply involved in both conflicts, this was a period of immense danger. During World War I, Italy joined the Allied side. San Marino, true to its ancient principles, declared its neutrality. However, it did not remain entirely aloof from the suffering. The Republic provided humanitarian aid, and a small number of San Marinese volunteers even joined the Italian forces, operating a Red Cross field hospital. They showed solidarity without compromising their official stance. World War II presented an even greater peril. Italy, under the fascist regime of Benito Mussolini, was a key Axis power. San Marino found itself in an incredibly difficult position, an independent republic enclosed within a fascist dictatorship. While it maintained its neutrality, it could not escape the pressures of the war. The Republic's greatest challenge, and its greatest moment of moral courage, was its decision to become a massive refugee camp. As the fighting raged up the Italian peninsula, San Marino opened its borders to anyone seeking safety. Its population of just 15,000 people provided shelter for over 100,000 refugees, sharing their limited food and resources. This extraordinary act of humanity was not without cost. Despite its neutrality, San Marino was mistakenly bombed by the British Royal Air Force in June 1944, resulting in dozens of civilian deaths. The Allies had wrongly believed that German forces were using its territory. Later in the year, it was briefly occupied by German forces, and then liberated by the Allies after the Battle of San Marino. The war had finally, and tragically, come to their mountain home. Yet even through this trauma, the Republic held fast to its identity. It had faced the ultimate test and had chosen compassion over fear, reaffirming its ancient role as a place of refuge. In the aftermath of the war, San Marino focused on rebuilding and reaffirming its place in the modern world. It strengthened its democratic institutions, becoming a full parliamentary democracy. It joined international bodies like the Council of Europe and later, the United Nations, cementing its status as a sovereign member of the global community. The Republic had survived the most destructive century in human history by clinging to the same principles that had guided it for centuries: neutrality, diplomacy, and a deep-seated commitment to human dignity. The world had changed, but San Marino's core values had not. So, what is the secret to San Marino's incredible longevity? How has this tiny nation outlived the Romans, the Medicis, and Napoleon? The answer is not a single, simple thing. It is a unique combination of factors, a special recipe for survival perfected over 1,700 years. First and foremost is its geography. The steep, defensible slopes of Mount Titano provided a natural fortress. It was a difficult place to attack and an easy place to defend, which often made potential conquerors think twice. The mountain was the physical foundation upon which everything else was built, a high perch from which to watch the world. Next is its unwavering commitment to diplomacy and neutrality. San Marino has always understood that for a small state, the greatest power lies in having no enemies. By refusing to take sides in the conflicts of its larger neighbors, it made itself useful as a neutral intermediary and a safe haven. It mastered the art of polite refusal and wise negotiation, from turning down Napoleon's offer of land to navigating its relationship with the papacy and modern Italy. Its foreign policy has always been a masterclass in pragmatism, turning potential weakness into a formidable diplomatic strength. It chose words over swords, and that choice saved it time and time again. Another key ingredient is its strong and unique identity. The story of St. Marinus and the promise of liberty are not just historical footnotes, they are the living heart of the nation. This powerful founding myth has given the Sammarinese an unbreakable sense of who they are. This is reinforced by their unique political system of the captain's regent, which has fostered a deep-rooted republican tradition and prevented the concentration of power. This internal cohesion and cultural pride have made the republic resilient. It is a community that knows its own story and is determined to protect it. Ultimately, San Marino exists because it chose a different path. In a world that has always glorified size, power, and conquest, it has championed smallness, peace, and freedom. It has proven that a nation's greatness is not measured by the extent of its borders, but by the strength of its ideals. Today, San Marino thrives as a modern democratic state, its economy buoyed by tourism as visitors flock to see this living piece of history. It stands as a powerful testament to the idea that unity, tradition, and a clear vision can be more enduring than the mightiest of empires. It is the republic that refused to die, and its story is a lesson for us all.